Well, our next speaker is Eleanor Puddin from Quicksave, who's talking about chat as a platform. So a round of applause, please.
Thank you. Okay, so I kind of continue on the same area as the last speaker. My name is Eleanor Puddin, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Quicksave. And we develop games exclusively for messaging, so to chat as a platform. So that's why I'm here today to talk about what is this, what does it mean to have a chat as a platform, what does it offer for games, and what does it offer for game developers. A little bit about my own background. So we started our first game startup, Tribe Studios, in 2010. Tribe was already doing social and multiplayer games. It was in PC and Mac platforms because our games required people to have discussions with each other. And we didn't think that that would fly in the standalone mobile application if you had to type a lot. Then at the end of 2014, we realized that the chat apps had arrived. And we realized that we could have our games inside applications if somebody would kind of distribute our games. We started to contact different chat apps, and they were all kind of interested in this idea. We found Palringo, which then ended up acquiring the company. So for 2 years, we were developing chat games for Palringo, which is a British group chat application, messaging app. You might not know it. It has a big following, for example, in the MENA region in Middle East. So after Palringo, like basically at the beginning of this year, we kind of realized that we had this experience around the chat games, and the market had been kind of exploding with different platforms coming into the play. What we already noticed at Palringo is that you can do games with simple text, like bot games, but once you have an HTML5 component that also Palringo rolled out, you can get so much more, infinitely more kind of gameplay inside the chat. And it's kind of a big day. We're also announcing our first game, Best and Bester. Best and Bester is a cooperation with the Finnish animation studio Gigglebug Entertainment. They announced their TV animation with the same name last week at Cartoon Forum. So Best and Bester are these two characters who are always trying to find out what is the bestest thing in the world. And they're making these illogical comparisons. The game has also a competitive side where you can try to guess what others have voted. You have some user-generated content where you can create your own group polls for your friends. So Best and Bester is a very social game that fits well in this kind of communicative environment that we have in the chat. That's about us. Now let's go and start with the numbers. So what does the messaging look like overall? What's the size of the market? Well, one key fact is that the messaging apps have surpassed kind of more traditional social networks in size. So this means that the likes of WhatsApp, WeChat, Messenger, they have more users than Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And this kind of trend keeps on going. If you look at Facebook Messenger alone, it has 1.2 billion monthly active users, and that's a big install base for a platform. If we look at some of the other new platforms that have been coming for games like smartwatches, VR, they are still kind of struggling to have enough penetration for the technology that it makes sense that the games can grow big. With these kind of user numbers, in the chat, the games can already grow and they can already become big. There's a flurry statistics on the app categories and how they are growing. So if you look at the messaging, it's the fastest growing app category. And quite interestingly, the game apps is the second last. It actually has a negative growth in the app usage. So messaging is still growing very rapidly. The last graphical statistics slide is about the monetization. So on the first one, you have the online entertainment in China and what categories are monetizing most. So the games is the biggest one, the blue sector, and also the same in US. So the biggest monetizing sector is games in online entertainment. And now if you look at all these statistics, if you look at the messaging, how big that is already, and it's still growing, and then you look at how games traditionally are good at monetizing audiences, it starts to make a lot of sense to put the two together. So what are the platforms? I'm going to go shortly through how these 6 different apps have made their solutions for games. There are other apps that display games, but they are downloadable games. And now we are only interested in the experiences that you can have without leaving the kind of mother app, the messaging app. So Facebook Messenger instant games, it's a fully integrated HTML5 games. They are always full screen with a portrait orientation. They've been in beta since end of last year. And the kind of two key components here for a game developer is that the games can send customized messages to chat. And these are really rich messages that you can do, and you have a full control on how you communicate. And that's very important because we are in a social environment where people are communicating with each other, and the game needs to fit nicely into that environment and make sense on people need to want to receive the messages from the game. And then another key feature is that you can easily switch contexts between groups and friends. So even inside the game, in one game session, you can decide that actually I want to play with these friends or with this group of people. And that's also a very handy mechanic to have a gameplay in the messaging where you can kind of choose who you play with on the fly. And the monetization, the big question, it's coming this year, as Facebook has publicly announced. The next one, Kik, has discovery for bots that includes game bots. And the games can create these buttons on the chat. And even though that doesn't look graphically so fancy, it still makes the game able to have a lot more depth than just with text messages. So that's already a big improvement for just game bots. But then also in Kik, you can have like a full HTML5 pages opening. And what they are doing with monetization is kind of interesting. They just did, or maybe it's still ongoing. They're just in the process of doing an initial coin offering, a token distribution event. And presumably they will use their own token, which they say is a decentralized ecosystem of digital services for daily life. So they will use that to monetize their games. Interesting to see how that will go. vContact, that was already mentioned by the last speaker, which is the most popular messaging app in Russia. And they launched direct games last month, which is HTML5 games launched directly from the app. And they have these vContact points that they monetize with, but it's currently only available in Android. And so they only are saying that iOS is coming. And we don't know when the iOS comes, but definitely something to look at on how this works as well. Then WeChat. WeChat can be a bit elusive for a Western game developer, because the app that we download here is a reduced version of what you get in China. So it's hard to investigate what does it actually have. They don't have a game discovery for this kind of HTML5 games. They have games tab, but that's only for downloadable games. So for these games, you have to search for them as you would be searching for your friend, and you can kind of friend the games, and you can play them. They will launch from the chat, and you can share them to friends. But the kind of integration between the game and the platform isn't as strong as like in Facebook Messenger, where you can have those rich messages appear and where you can switch the context of who you play with. So I haven't seen that here. If somebody knows otherwise, correct me. It's a bit hard area to investigate without the skills in Mandarin. iMessage, obviously only available for iOS users, for iPhone and iPad. Often the games are also native iOS games. So the download kind of happens in the background. So it's almost, it is like you are playing in the chat, in the messaging, but there's still often a download into your phone. But then on the monetization side, obviously there are both paid premium apps and in-game purchases. It's a straight connection to App Store monetization. The last app, Telegram, has HTML5 games played via a bot. So you have to talk to this game bot, and the game bot will tell you what games there are available. And then it can launch these HTML5 games. Telegram announced fairly recently that they brought bot payments to their platform. But what that mainly means is that if you are like ordering a pizza through a bot, you can pay for the pizza inside Telegram. but I haven't seen like a proper game monetization, and I haven't been really expecting one because Telegram has been run kind of like a non-commercial project until at least so far. So it's still technically interesting to see what happens there and how they will develop in the future. And I'm pretty sure the list will still grow. I mean, there are still chat applications that haven't introduced anything like this kind of instant game type of gameplay, and they still might do that. So how does it work for games? What do games benefit from being on this platform? Couple of things. First of all, it's a natural multiplayer environment. This may seem like a self-evident thing, of course, but it's worth to take a note. Like, what does it actually mean? Because a lot of the games out there right now are single-player games, which don't really utilize this. And it's a multiplayer environment inside your social graph, so it's very easy to play games with your friends. And it works both for like turn-based games or synchronous multiplayer games, asynchronous multiplayer games. Really, all types of multiplayer is a natural fit. Then the chat group kind of functions as the game lobby. So that's where you launch the game into the game sessions alone or with your friends by your side at the same time. Also kind of related, but different, is instant clans. If you look at games like Clash of Clans, there's kind of a funnel. You go and you download and install the game, you start playing the game, you join and find a clan for yourself, and then you start chatting in the clan chat. And the chat is a very important feature because it provides the retention. You often come back to the game because your clan needs you. You can't let down your friends, so that's why you start playing again. But in the chat environment, this is kind of reversed, that you start with the chat and you start with your clan around you, and then you go and play the game. So this is kind of a different environment, and you have to consider it. It can enable certain things that in the App Store are difficult to do, are actually easy to do in the chat environment. And here, after you played the game, of course, you can go back to the chat and talk some more and also talk about the game and share the game strategies. So the chat is kind of there for the game to use. Then obviously easy access, because there's no download. You just click on it and you can play instantly. And it's worth noticing that there's also no uninstall. So after you get fed up with the game, there's nothing that you remove from your phone not to play anymore. So one day you might still think, oh, actually, there was this funny game. Let's go back to it. So also coming back to a game is very easy. But because this start is very fast, the players are not investing a lot of time to get into your game. And because of this small investment in the beginning, you don't have a lot of time to impress them on the first go. If you go and buy a PC game and it takes an hour to download and patch and log in, you give it a time. You give it an hour to impress you before you decide that it's not actually for you. But here it might be seconds that you need to give the first positive impression. And you need to show what the game's about, how to play it, and also like what will it offer later when you return. Will there be something more that you get the next time, or more that you get when you keep playing it? So there's a lot of kind of requirement on the first gameplay seconds and on the first gameplay session. Then there's of course the built-in notifications. This is also kind of self-evident, but you know, it's worth thinking about it because it's very important how the games communicate to the chat, and so that the users want to receive the messages, so that they are funny and kind of relevant. And if you think of the notifications, sometimes it's hard to get the players accept notifications from your game app. I mean, you can send them from your game app, but sometimes people don't allow them. But here, people usually allow the messaging apps to send them notifications. So that's something that is a big opportunity for virality. I mean, of course, the people can, and they often will, mute the groups where they play most, so that the muted groups don't instantly pop up in the front screen of the phone. But even if they mute groups, they still go into the messaging apps like many times a day. So they will see the little number there, and they will easily see the messages from your game. So there's a big opportunity here, and it's also something that you really need to think of carefully when designing your game on what's the kind of communication strategy with the game and the platform. So, is this like something that everyone should do? Like every game is an instant hit? Well, no. It's still that the games are services here, maybe more than ever elsewhere, because it's technically easy to update your instant game. So there's no need not to do that, and players are kind of used to that level of service, that the games are kept fresh by updating the content, so they would not require any less from a game inside their messaging app. So the metagame and depth required from the games will eventually be as good as for any current game in an app store. So it's like a different platform, it's a different type of an ecosystem. There's definitely benefits of being there, but you have to still build the game and work towards like how do you get it to be a fit for the platform. Okay, last summaries. So what is chat as a platform? It's a natural multiplayer environment. It's instant clan and community building, frictionless discovery and move to the game. Messaging and notification interfaces are built in. Few points on what I feel it's not. It's not a user acquisition channel for your game in the App Store. This is actually something that a lot of the platforms don't allow you to do. So they don't allow you to have like a light version in the chat that just links to your full game. That's not what the ecosystem is kind of built for. And it's not just for like light and small mini games. You can have as much metagame and depth and vividness in your games. There's also, somebody was asking at the end of last presentation, there's also 3D games, games with 3D graphics in instant games already. So you can do a lot. And it's not only a distribution channel for existing HTML5 games, again, because the need to tailor the experience to fit the platform. So you still need to think about how does the game utilize the messaging environment and how does it fit there. Okay, thank you. I think I have a couple of minutes, maybe 2 minutes for any questions.
Yeah, if there's any questions, please shout. Do we have any questions about chat as a game platform? Well, there.
This one?
Back first.
Can you make games? Like, what are the limits?
For instant games, for example, the initial download has to be big. It has to be, quick. So you have to be able to load up the first kind of set of graphics and gameplay very quickly, so that the user don't have to wait. But you can actually have your own backend, and you can load on the background as well. So there is no like kind of one hard limit actually. But it's just on the initial loading and the overall usability that is kind of measured.
Thank you. Was there a question down here first, and I'll come to you next, and that'll be there.
Hey, Elina.
Hi.
So you mentioned briefly that Facebook's announced something about monetization. I read a lot, but I haven't seen that. Can you point me to what they've said?
Who? Like Facebook?
You mentioned on the Messenger Games slide that Facebook said they're adding monetization. I've only seen them say, well, we're thinking about it and we eventually want to solve for it. Has there been something concrete said?
There has been an announcement, I think it was in TechCrunch earlier this year. Maybe I can still find the link. Yes, they said that there will be monetization launched this year. And they haven't said much more about it, at least not that I know of any links.
Thank you. And then, oops, thank you. And then just one final question. Oh, you've got a mic. Beat me to it.
You said that the loading time has to be quick, but how quick exactly? And for example, I know that Unity has a very slow startup time on web. Is Unity too slow?
We haven't tried Unity, so I don't have. I don't have. There's somebody from the audience wants to answer, but I don't remember the actual how many seconds it can. There's a limit from Facebook, like how many seconds you can load. I don't remember the exact number right now, but we haven't tried with Unity, and I don't know what the Unity's loading time is. So I can't really say if it's too slow.
All right.